Julia's death. The group has just finished dismissing the idea that death is still hunting them, probably feeling relief for the first time in days. Julia thinks she's beaten the curse, that maybe they've actually outsmarted the system and can live normal lives again. But during a heated conversation about their supposed safety, Julia suddenly gets caught in the path of a massive garbage truck. She's pulled into the back of the truck, landing among piles of rotting trash and debris. As she struggles to climb out, disoriented and covered in garbage, the compactor mechanism activates with a mechanical grinding sound. The walls start closing in around her, and she realizes with horror that she's trapped inside a giant crushing machine. She's screaming, clawing at the walls, but there's nowhere to go as the metal plates slowly compress inward. The compactor crushes her head with methodical precision while she's fully conscious and aware. Death doesn't just kill Julia, it turns her into literal garbage, compacted and disposed of like trash. If you thought that was bad, wait until you see the next one. Darlene Reyes's death proves that even heroic sacrifice can't outmaneuver fate. After years of estrangement, Darlene returns to protect her children Stephanie and Charlie from death's relentless pursuit. They flee to Iris's isolated cabin, hoping to hide and break the deadly chain targeting their family. Their RV crashes through the front gate, triggering a massive explosion that sends the vehicle into nearby water. As Stephanie becomes trapped and starts drowning, Darlene acts heroically to save Charlie from the immediate danger. Just as she completes the rescue, a lamppost, weakened by the crash and explosion, suddenly collapses and falls directly onto her.
I'm gonna stay alive as long as...
The impact is so forceful that the metal post slices clean through her body, bisecting her completely and killing her instantly. Charlie watches in horror as his mother, who just risked everything to save him, gets cut in half right in front of his eyes. Darlene's heroic return to save her family becomes her death sentence. Death doesn't care about redemption or sacrifice. It just wants what it's owed. But this death was nowhere near as bad as the next one.
Howard Campbell's death shows how a peaceful family barbecue can turn into a brutal massacre. Howard is just enjoying a nice day with his family, probably grilling burgers and thinking about relaxing weekend plans. Death has started targeting Iris Campbell's descendants by age, and Howard's number is up, whether he knows it or not. During the barbecue, Howard steps on a piece of broken glass and loses his balance, falling backward onto the lawn. An out-of-control lawnmower, set in motion by a convoluted chain of accidents, comes barreling toward him across the yard. As Howard lies on the ground, dazed and bleeding from the glass cut, the lawnmower runs directly over his head. The spinning blades tear into his face and skull, shredding flesh and bone in the most gruesome fashion possible, while his horrified family watches helplessly. The machine doesn't just hit him and move on. It gets stuck, grinding away at what's left of his head. What should have been a perfect family day becomes a blood-soaked nightmare that his relatives will never forget. Unfortunately, this death isn't even the most painful. The Skyview restaurant tower disaster creates the most catastrophic mass death event in franchise history. The disaster begins when the massive glass dance floor develops hairline cracks under the weight of the celebrating crowd. Within seconds, the entire floor shatters like a bomb, sending dozens of partygoers plummeting through multiple levels of the tower. Some guests fall straight through to the street below, their bodies smashing into the pavement with bone-crushing impact. Others get caught on jagged glass edges, slicing through flesh and organs as they're impaled on razor-sharp shards. But the falling glass is just the beginning. A massive fire erupts in the restaurant kitchen, spreading rapidly through the building's ventilation system. Guests trapped on upper floors are burned alive, their evening gowns and tuxedos becoming funeral pyres as they scream and claw at locked emergency exits. The flames reach the building's structural supports, causing catastrophic explosions that blow out entire sections of the tower. As the building starts to collapse, massive chunks of concrete, steel, and glass rain down on the streets below. Bystanders who came to watch the grand opening are crushed by falling debris. Cars are flattened like tin cans. A massive section of the rotating mechanism breaks free and plummets through the building, creating a domino effect of destruction that turns every floor into a death trap. People are simultaneously burning, falling, being crushed, impaled, and buried alive as the entire tower becomes a towering inferno of death. The lucky ones die instantly from the impact or explosions. The unlucky ones are trapped in the wreckage, slowly burning or bleeding to death, while rescue workers can only listen to their screams.
bodies are so mangled and burned that many victims are never identified. Iris's warning saves most of these people from this nightmare, but by disrupting death's design, she dooms every survivor and their descendants to be hunted for generations. The disaster that should have killed hundreds in 1969 instead creates a curse that will claim lives for decades to come. But none of these deaths were close to the last one. Iris Campbell's death shows what happens when you try to prove death is real. After decades spent in isolation documenting death's patterns, Iris faces her skeptical granddaughter Stephanie, who refuses to believe the curse is real. Iris has been living in a fortified cabin, meticulously tracking every death, knowing she's next in line, but trying to protect her family. To prove the reality of death's design once and for all, Iris deliberately steps outside her protective cabin with Stephanie, knowing this will trigger her own demise. A sudden gust of wind dislodges a weather vane from a nearby structure, sending the metal spike hurtling through the air with deadly precision. The weather vane pierces straight through Iris's body, impaling her exactly as she had foreseen in her original premonition decades earlier. She dies instantly, but her sacrifice serves its purpose. Stephanie finally understands that death's pattern is real and inescapable. Iris spent her entire life trying to cheat death, only to deliberately walk into its arms. Her death becomes the undeniable proof that dooms the rest of her family. But this death was nowhere near as the last one. But first,
The MRI machine death shows what happens when two brothers try to outsmart death itself. Bobby and Eric think they've figured out how to cheat the system, using Bobby's severe nut allergy. Plan is simple. Bobby eats nuts, goes into anaphylactic shock, technically dies, then gets revived. What a great idea. You couldn't pay me to bet my life on this dork. They execute their plan in a hospital with a 7 Tesla Research MRI scanner, one of the most powerful magnetic machines on Earth. The MRI activates on its own, with its magnetic field getting more and more intense beyond any safety limits. Eric is covered in metal piercings, so he gets violently yanked into the chamber as his piercings tear through his flesh. A wheelchair crushes him inside the scanner while a metal spring from a vending machine launches through the air, impaling Bobby directly through his skull. Both brothers die simultaneously, one crushed by magnetic force, the other with metal driven into his brain. Their plan to cheat death creates the most painful double execution possible. But none of these deaths were close to the next one. Stefani and Charlie Reyes's deaths prove that death's plan is never truly broken. The siblings think they've finally outsmarted the system after Charlie rescued and revived Stefani from drowning. They believe the revival loophole from Final Destination 2 has saved them, feeling safe for the first time in weeks. But at Charlie's prom, a doctor delivers devastating news. Stefani was never actually clinically dead, just unconscious, so death's cycle was never broken. Suddenly, an old woman drops a coin that rolls onto nearby train tracks, triggering a catastrophic chain reaction. A massive timber-carrying train derails in their neighborhood, sending enormous logs hurtling through the air like wooden missiles. Stefani and Charlie narrowly dodge the train itself, but get instantly crushed by the falling logs. In a sequence that mirrors the infamous log truck crash from Final Destination 2. Both siblings are flattened simultaneously by tons of timber, their bodies pulverized in an instant. Death's final joke, making them think they were safe before delivering the most brutal callback possible. These deaths prove that Final Destination Bloodlines is nasty, but I'm not sure if it's as nasty as the most painful deaths in Alien. Click the video on screen to find out.